For centuries, the story of how Japan came to be seemed pretty straightforward. One ancient, unique people developing on their islands and creating a single uniform culture. It's a powerful story, but not the whole story. For decades, archaeology gave us clues, fragments of a larger puzzle. Now, ancient DNA is revealing a more complex truth locked in Japan's past. The islands were shaped not by one group, but by three major waves of people. And the final, most transformative wave was poorly understood until the last few years of genetic research made it clear. The old dual structure model said hunter-gatherers were replaced by farmers from the continent. Recent breakthroughs upend that simplification. By sequencing DNA from people who lived thousands of years ago, scientists uncovered a third major influx that mixed with earlier groups as Japan's first imperial state was rising. We now have a tripartite model grounded in ancient genomes, three peoples, three eras, and how modern Japan was made. Our story begins more than 16,000 years ago, as the last ice age ended and the Japanese archipelago took shape. This was the world of the Jomon, sophisticated hunter-gatherer fishers who created one of the world's oldest pottery traditions with iconic cord-marked designs, built pit dwellings, harvested nuts and fish, and worked lacquer and shell into ornaments. Genetically, the Jomon were highly distinct after an early split from continental populations. They remained relatively isolated for millennia with a small, effective population size. That isolation forged a unique genetic signature that still echoes today. The highest amounts of Jomon-related ancestry appear among the Ainu of Hokkaido, with elevated levels also among Ryukyuans in Okinawa, and mainland Japanese generally model at roughly 10–20% Jomon ancestry. For thousands of years, Jomon lifeways dominated the islands, with regional styles and long-distance networks that moved obsidian, shells, and ideas. Then, in the first millennium BCE, a new wave arrived. The Yayoi, migrants from the Asian mainland who brought wet rice agriculture and metalworking in bronze and iron. Farming spread quickly across western Japan. Populations grew, and both the archaeological record and the genetic landscape shifted. Paddies reshaped valleys, moated settlements, and storage pits appear. Bronze bells known as dotaku enter ritual life, and iron tools change work and warfare. Ancient DNA shows Yayoi groups mixed with local Jomon communities, producing populations that carried ancestry from both. Recent analyses of Yayoi period remains point strongly to migrants whose closest affinities are to populations of the Korean peninsula, aligning with long-recognized archaeological links in tools, pottery forms, and farming techniques. That movement laid down a continental East Asian genetic layer across Western Japan that later spread more broadly. While models agree that mainland Japanese today retain a stable Jomon component, the precise split of the remaining majority between early Yayoi and later Kofun inputs varies by dataset and remains an active area of study. How do we know any of this? Ancient DNA, often abbreviated aDNA, comes from dense parts of the skeleton like the petrous portion of the temporal bone or the roots of teeth. In clean labs, researchers extract and sequence fragments that carry chemical damage signatures expected from age. They check for modern contamination, then build genomic libraries and compare the ancient genomes to panels of present-day and ancient populations. The statistics behind the headlines use tools like principal component analysis to map genetic similarity, F-statistics to test whether a group can be modeled as a mixture of others, and admixture graphs to estimate proportions. These are models, not magic. They're strongest when many individuals from clear archaeological contexts are sampled across space and time. The final piece comes from the Kofun-period, roughly the 3rd to 7th centuries CE, named for the giant keyhole-shaped burial mounds of a new ruling class. This era saw state formation, sharp social hierarchies, continent-wide diplomacy, and the arrival of horse gear, armor styles, and mirror traditions that tied Japan firmly into East Asian exchange. Ancient genomes from Kofun-period individuals reveal a third ancestral source closely related to mainland East Asians. Influential analyses highlight how substantial the Kofun-era contribution is to modern mainland Japanese ancestry, underscoring that this was not a minor trickle but a major pulse. New work in 2024-2025 indicates that migrants in both the Yayoi and Kofun periods primarily trace back to lineages connected to the Korean peninsula. Rather than one continuous stream, the best current view is of at least two major pulses from closely related continental populations: an earlier agricultural wave and a later, larger state-building wave that mixed with enduring Jomon-derived lineages already present on the islands. Artifacts help anchor that genetic story in real life. From Jomon sites, we see cord-marked pottery, lacquered objects, shell bracelets, and fishing gear that match a coastal foraging economy. From Yayoi contexts, we see rice paddies, storage jars, sickles, bronze bells, and iron tools that point to farming schedules, surplus, and new rituals. From Kofun mounds, we see a different world entirely. Haniwa terracotta figures lining mound surfaces, bronze mirrors that signal authority, iron swords and spearheads, armor plates, beads of glass and stone, and eventually horse trappings that speak to mounted elites. The step change from Jomon to Yayoi to Kofun isn't just about genes. It's about subsistence, settlement, hierarchy, and ideology. Diet and mobility studies back this up. Stable isotope analysis shows a broad shift from marine-heavy diets in many Jomon regions to rice-heavy diets after Yayoi agriculture spreads. Strontium and oxygen isotopes can identify individuals who grew up elsewhere, capturing mobility in a way pottery styles alone cannot. When those chemical signatures line up with genetics, an individual with continental-like ancestry also showing non-local isotopes, the case for real movement of people, not just ideas, gets much stronger. It's also important to say what the science does not do. Haplogroups on the Y chromosome, or mtDNA, track one lineage each. They are useful but only part of the picture. Autosomal DNA, the 22 non-sex chromosome pairs, carries the blended signal of all ancestors and is the main engine behind admixture models. No single marker defines a people, and culture doesn't map 1.1 to genes. The story of Japan's origins is not a scoreboard. It's a timeline of contacts, marriages, and choices that left traces in both artifacts and DNA. Regional variation matters too. Jomon-related ancestry tends to be higher in Hokkaido and the Ryukyus, lower in much of Honshu, and admixture proportions within Honshu vary between regions shaped by geography and history. The timing and intensity of Yayoi and Kofun inputs differ by place, and later historical eras add further layers through movement, assimilation, and drift. That is why percentages differ by study. Sample sizes, time slices, and reference panels all matter. But across methods, the direction is consistent. Put together, Japan's origin story is fusion, not replacement. Picture a tapestry. The first threads are Jomon, deep, distinctive, and still visible at the archipelago's northern and southern edges. Then Yayoi threads are woven in from the Korean peninsula, carrying rice agriculture and metallurgy. They do not erase the earlier pattern, but enrich it. Finally, during the Kofun period, another strong continental wave arrives again, tied to the peninsula, coinciding with centralized authority. That influx contributes a very large share of the ancestry seen in modern mainland Japanese, while Jomon-related ancestry remains a stable minority component. Exact percentages differ by region and by model, but the signal is clear. Enduring Jomon roots plus substantial continental inputs spread across Yayoi and Kofun times. Understanding this doesn't diminish a unique Japanese identity. It enriches it. The islands were never sealed. They were connected, choosing, borrowing, and blending across millennia. The genetics doesn't speak alone. It harmonizes with archaeology, linguistics, and history. and the picture is still sharpening as more ancient individuals are sequenced from more sites and time periods with cleaner methods and better comparative data. The next genome from a small coastal village or a high-status Kofun burial could refine dates, roots, and proportions yet again. Until then, the best evidence points to 3 peoples and 3 eras weaving one nation: Jomon Foundations, Yayoi farming revolution, and a Kofun-era consolidation that anchored the ancestry of much of mainland Japan while preserving deep local roots at the archipelago's edges. With every new ancient genome we sequence, the picture gets sharper: 3 peoples, 3 eras, one nation forged by migration and change. If you found this journey into Japan's deep past fascinating, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more explorations into history and science. And let us know in the comments what ancient mystery you'd like us to investigate next. Thanks for watching.